So on the back here, I'm looking at my two special triangles. I know that that's a 45, 45, 90, that's one of them. Then the other is a 30, 60, 90. These are my two special triangles. And the number I've got to remember for a 45, 45, 90 is radical 2, and radical 3 for the 30, 60, 90. You got to remember those. That's the radical I'm using for each different triangle. So looking at number 6, these are congruent sides, and that's a 90-degree angle. So those are congruent, so that only means one thing, that this is a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So if I find x, then I've found y. So I know that the hypotenuse, so this is for a 45, 45, 90, the hypotenuse equals the leg times the square root of 2. So I know what the hypotenuse is. It's 20 equals x, because that's one of the legs, times the square root of 2. So now I should divide both sides by the square root of 2. Cancels here. So 20 over the square root of 2 equals x. If I multiply top and bottom by the square root of 2, I get x equals 20 times the square root of 2 over, and this is just 2. So that reduces this. Now I can reduce this fraction now, so x equals 10 radical 2. Alright, so that's for number 6. Number 7, I'm looking at the same type of triangle. This is a 45, 45, 90. So x equals, and I'm looking for an angle here, and it's congruent to this, so it's 45 degrees. Y equals 3 times the square root of 2, going back to my formula. That's the hypotenuse, that's a leg. So the hypotenuse equals the leg times the square root of 2. And then z here, z is congruent to this one, so that's 3. That one was pretty simple. Alright, next. Number 8. What I'm going to have to remember here is that the hypotenuse equals the shorter leg, so we'll call it leg 1 times 2. And that leg 2, the longer leg, equals leg 1 times the square root of 3. Those are my two formulas I've got to remember. So here, I have the shorter leg and the hypotenuse, so I'm going to use this top one here. So 14, that's the hypotenuse, equals x, that's the shorter leg, times 2. So if I divide both sides by 2, I get x equals 7. Now that I know this is 7, I can plug it in to find the longer leg. So the longer leg, leg 2, which is called y here, longer leg, equals the shorter leg, 7, times the square root of 3. That's all I need. Okay, this one's probably one of the trickier ones that we'll see because we're given the longest leg. If we know this or this, it's a little bit easier. So the shorter leg or the hypotenuse is easier. The longer leg is the hardest one. But what I can use is this second formula here. Leg 2, the longer leg, so that's 12, equals x, the shorter leg, times the square root of 3. Now I divide both sides by the square root of 3. So those cancel, and I get x equals 12 over the square root of 3. Don't want this in the denominator. So I multiply top and bottom by the square root of 3. So I get 12, the square root of 3, over this times this gives me just 3. Now reduce this fraction, that's 4 over 1. So I'll just write it as x equals 4 times the square root of 3. 4 square root of 3. Now, I know the shorter leg, I want the hypotenuse, so I'm using this formula. The hypotenuse, which is y, equals 2 times 4 radical 3. So y here equals 8 radical 3. Alright, last one, trickiest one. I'm looking at both a 30, 60, 90 and a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So if we look at it that way, that there's two different triangles here, we've just got to go step by step, and it's not as hard as it seems. So I want to know what x equals, what y equals, and what z equals. So in a 30, 60, 90, the shorter leg equals half the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is 16. So the shorter leg, which is y, equals 16 divided by 2. So that's 8. Now x, the longer leg, equals the shorter leg, which is 8, times the square root of 3. Done. We're almost done. And then the hypotenuse of the 45, 45, 90 equals the leg times the square root of 2. I'm using this formula right here. Hypotenuse equals leg times the square root of 2. So 8 times the square root of 2. That's my answer.